Hi everyone. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Bruno Gallo. I'm the founder of Unique University Experience, and I have prepared thousands of students to go and study abroad and to successfully prepare for the IELTS exam. Today I'm here to talk to you about the most common mistakes that students make in the 4 sections of the IELTS exam and all of the hurdles that you can find during the test. Now let's start with the writing section. One of the biggest mistakes that students make is having a weak structure. Now, having a very strong introduction, it's the first thing that the examiner will read. So this is really crucial to nail your writing part. You also have to remember to write in paragraphs, which is something that students often underestimate. But this is very important to show to the examiner that you are having a consistent and structured approach throughout the whole writing. And finally, the conclusion. This is the last thing that the examiner will read. So this is very important and will have to be nicely linked to your introduction. You will have to be coherent with what you're writing. So if you start talking about an approach or a service or something in the introduction, it will have to be nicely joined in your conclusion. Now, one of the other mistakes that students make in the writing section is not fully answering to the question itself. So sometimes a student misinterprets the question or potentially answer only to part of it. This will lead to a lower mark. And then last but not least, poor grammar and repetitive vocabulary. This is really critical. You really want to show to the examiner that the vocabulary that you're using is accurate and relevant to the answer that you're giving. And obviously, the grammar will have to be perfect. Okay, now let's move on to the speaking section. One of the biggest mistakes that I've seen in students is giving short answers. Examiners don't want you to answer simply yes, no, red, blue. They want full answers. They want an ongoing conversation. They don't want you to kill the conversation. Another mistake that I've noticed in the speaking section is the use of memorized phrases. Students often think that if they memorize a sentence or a statement, this will help them during the exam. But actually, this is not true. Examiners will notice this, and this will not sound natural. You will lose points. And additionally, it will be much harder for you to remember these sentences in the situation where you're under pressure. During the speaking section, you will not be as confident as you are now at home. So avoid memorizing any statements or phrases during the speaking. And finally, one of the mistakes that I often see in the speaking section is using monotone delivery. So the examiners want to hear that you are emphasizing and highlighting the key words in each sentence rather than speaking all at the same tone of voice. This is not good. You will lose points if you do so. Okay, now let's move on to the reading section. One of the most common mistakes that students make is trying to read every single word. During the exam, you will not have the time to read every single word. You will have to learn reading techniques, which is what we teach in our courses and will help you to successfully pass the reading section. Another problem that students often face is time management. You will not have the same amount of time that you have now at home. During the exam, you will be under pressure and time will be crucial. You can't spend 5 minutes on a question or 10 minutes on a section. You will have to be strategic and fast. And then last but not least, one of the biggest mistakes that students make in the reading section is confusing false with not given. Now, this is very important. I can't keep on stressing how important this is in this section. In fact, students will have to pay attention with the information that are not given in the text with what is actually false. This is something that we thoroughly practice in our IELTS preparation courses. and we'll give you tips and advices on how to actually nail this section without making mistakes that students often make. Okay, now let's move on to the listening section. One of the biggest mistakes that I see that students make, it's losing focus halfway. Sometimes the students get caught by a word or a sentence that they don't understand, and in the meantime, they lose several points not answering to the other questions. You will have to be focused throughout the whole recording. This is something that we thoroughly practice in our IELTS prep courses and will help you boost your focus levels. One other mistake that students often make, it's writing too early. Perhaps they hear a word or a sentence that feels similar to the question or the answer that they want to give, and they start writing straight away. You have to pay attention to the whole section and make sure that the answer is coherent and correct in each part. And then finally, one other big mistake in the listening section is spelling and grammar. Now, a lot of students pay attention on these aspects of the English language only in the writing section, but you have to make sure that writing and spelling is coherent and appropriate also in the listening. If you spell a word incorrectly or if you use inappropriate grammar, even in the listening section, you will lose points. At the same time, many of you started asking me, how can I improve my English language abilities? How can I nail the IELTS exam? How can I obtain that band 7+ needed to apply for my university? This is why I have created an exclusive IELTS Success Workshop. A 1-hour workshop where I'm going to reveal all of the tips and advices needed to nail the exam and successfully pass the test. If you want to access all of this, you simply have to click the link below, follow the landing page and register. I hope to see you very soon.